So we're back here on some more Modern Disappointment. I'm still doing the camo challenges. I did not hard commit to that last night. I'm just not gonna do it. I don't care. Hopefully the lobbies get a lot less annoying as my KD goes down, doing like dumb shit like meleeing rocket launchers and shit like that. Hopefully less and less people will be using flak jacket or EOD or whatever it's called on here. If I beat you over the head with a launcher, you should just die instantly. I don't care. Call it what you want. But in actuality, in real life, I beat you over the head with that shit. You are dead as a fuck. It's crazy. I spent all that time using those shotguns and shit, and not a single one of them was killing anything at range like that. Disgusting, man. Just so happens to work for him, though. I wish you could see the camo grind. Like, I wish you could pin certain challenges so I don't lose track of things, so I'm able to do multiple things in one game. Because right there, I had to start out with trying to RPG people and shit like that. Then I had to try to remember the next thing I gotta do. Luckily, they're not backstabs with, like, the regular melee weapon. It's just get regular melee kills. You could even do it against bots and shit like that, but how am I supposed to shoot them in the back when they all have shields on their backs, too? I don't think I've seen a single person's back in this entire game, I'll be honest. Why do you need back kills again? What skill set does that show? Flanking? In a map like this, flanking is barely real. You just kind of spawn behind them. And maybe I should do shoot house or something. There's got to be people that are like standing there, whatever. I could just flank them. This is the shit that I dreaded doing. Trying to do specific stupid shit like this. I'm not getting any back kills, but you know, everything else just flies like it's nothing. The LMG, the rocket launcher, you can do this shit in like one game. Shipment. And the fact that we have shipment is amazing because usually they give us this challenge and then they expect us to do it on literally like the new map or the regular maps. People have been sending me messages talking about the whole like Microsoft acquisition and all that other shit. Now, again, it could be a thing where it's a good and a bad thing overall. We're gonna have to see how it actually goes because yeah, it's possible that things could be on Game Pass and other things like that, but there's also there's compounding effects that could potentially happen because of the way that this works. Like, I think it's good overall for people that like, you know, Activision and play Activision Blizzard type games and shit, but at the same time, overall, I don't think it's good for the gaming industry. So on one hand, it's nice to think that everyone would be able to benefit from this kind of thing, and then we would end up getting more games, but I feel like there's a possibility that this would result in less games. So basically what I mean by that, if Activision is trying to make the most money possible, right? And then say, for example, they want to go and make a game that isn't really something that is considered that profitable or doesn't have that big of a fan base, we're probably never going to see those games again. So for example, like StarCraft, for example, right? We're probably never going to get another StarCraft game because RTSs just aren't that popular. They don't see a profit in that kind of thing. You understand what I'm saying? They don't see nearly as much of a profit with making a game like that. So they'll just like forego that entirely. So if Microsoft owns and controls all of these major developers, then we actually end up getting less variety. It gets closer and closer to like monopolies and shit like that. And I know a lot of people are gonna roll their eyes at it, talk about business shit, but so for example, if they own all these different studios, right? And we're playing Diablo, right? Odds have it, they're not going to allow another studio that they own to go and make their own ARPG because they already have an ARPG that they own and they wouldn't want those games to be competing with each other. There's upsides, there's downsides. There's also a possibility that this is a good upside for like smaller devs and stuff like that under Microsoft. It can be good and bad, but on top of that, a lot of people are trying to give credit to this whole deal, quote, going through. From what I know, it's not even through. Yesterday or 2 days ago, apparently the old Call of Duty Xbox 360 servers were fixed. The matchmaking was apparently bugged and all that shit. Now, given just because they fixed it doesn't mean that I'm gonna go back and play it. It's just not gonna happen. So the big thing that a lot of people are thinking is that somehow this deal getting through the FTC, all that other shit, they think that somehow they managed to start making it work because they feel like the deal is gonna go through and Microsoft wants to own that catalog of games and they actually want them to work. I genuinely don't see how they would operate that quickly. Although I wouldn't be surprised at the same time if, you know, it really was that easily fixable for them and they just weren't doing it the entire time because it's just simply not worth it to them. Now, I guess better presentation wise, they want those things to be working, but I genuinely don't think they really have anything to do with each other considering it hasn't actually been passed. Also, I saw another thing that said something about like it's not gonna matter until like 2025. From what I know, a lot of people are thinking that you know, the old Call of Duties are gonna be coming to Game Pass, which would be a great thing. That would be amazing. It would help with the player bases. It would actually revive a lot of things, but again, if it's unsafe to play, if your IP is at risk, shit like that, it's still a danger to play whether, you know, we got more players on it or not. Also, I mean, it seems like Microsoft actually they kind of go with a little bit more projects than Sony seems to do. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong on that, but it feels like Microsoft is kind of okay with attempting to, you know, branch out and like try little projects and shit like that, which would be good overall for developers, right? But again, at the same time, it's gonna have to be like a specific kind of passion project because if it's something that conflicts with their biggest FPS, their biggest ARPG, their biggest RTS, they will not greenlight it because they already have a moneymaker maker in that category. Again, like I was saying, there's positives and negatives, and people agree and disagree with some of these. Overall, a lot of players, they're just seeing, oh, we could potentially play the old Call of Duties, and the player bases will actually not be dead, and the matchmaking works, and blah, blah, blah. That's nice, but again, if that stuff is still unsafe to play, it doesn't really matter. Also, I'm pretty sure that 2025 date was just meant for new Call of Duties. I think when this deal goes through, the older Call of Duties should end up on Game Pass before 2025. That's just my assumption. The way I interpreted it when I was reading it, it was under a section where they were talking about new releases, not the old releases that could just be on Game Pass. I could be wrong about that, don't quote me on it, but that's how I read it. Also, it's a possibility, since they own a larger portion of the games that are on the market, they could then raise the price even more. I remember when games used to be like $40 max, then it was $60, and then it was just $60 for a long time. Now you're starting to see a lot of the 70s and other stuff like that. For a long time, I remember it was 60, and then the special version was 70. Now it's, you know, you got these special deluxe editions that are like 100, 120, 150. Now, some of them are coming with better things than, you know, we had over, you know, some of those years. I'm looking at you, Fallout. Things that actually add value to the packaging, and if you're like a really, really big fan, a statue, some kind of like, you know, prop or something like that, okay, fine. That does add value to the package, and it makes sense. But overall, the more control they have over the market, the more ability they have to just up the prices overall, and then any of their competitors would have to follow suit, because they'll see them making that profit. They'll be afraid to fall behind, so they'll try to match. Also, all of this is happening during a time of where, like, people are just struggling, man. Even if you got a job and you're working your ass off, like, people are just struggling. So on top of that, having video games to try to escape reality, and then those video games remind you of reality every single time you have to go and spend $100 fucking potentially on this shit. So this Microsoft acquisition, good and bad, and I'm not even entirely sure of, like, what a lot of people will deem good or bad by the time it's actually happening. Because some people are really so blinded by, like, the console wars that, like, they just see this overall as, like, a win for their team. But we lose overall as, like, gamers in general. Like, the teams won't matter eventually. It's one of the bigger problems here. A lot of these people will just blindly accept it because they want their team winning. And then they think anybody else speaking about it is just crying, or they're, like, on the opposite team, when they're all just valid concerns. And there's a history of this shit. It's not, like, just a hunch. It's a history. Hey, well, good luck unlocking the camo for you guys, since you all have your backs plastered to the wall. These guys play shipment like they're in a prison shower. Back towards the wall at all times. A lot of this stuff that I'm thinking of is, like, you know, worst case scenario and shit like that. But again, if I'm able to think it up, there's obviously some kind of psychopath at the top in some smoke-filled fucking tower somewhere that's sitting here scheming up the next best way to make even more money. When they turn millions upon millions of dollars in profit, like, you don't make that much money through ethical means. That's just the truth. But yeah, this mastery grind is honestly, it's not hard. It's just kind of a nightmare in the current climate of all of the shotguns and shit like that. This shit's annoying, especially when it's something like behind kills and shit. Like, it's so odd that it's behind kills for battle rifles of all things as well. Battle rifles are a thing that is meant to be at range, usually, you know, not flanking or having the opportunity to be behind things. It just doesn't make sense. Why would that not be an SMG thing, where it's something that you can naturally flank with properly? It just seems like kills from behind makes more sense as an SMG thing, not a battle rifle thing. Battle rifle could just be the same thing as LMGs, like kills with suppressors, or even long shot. Nah, never mind, fuck long shot. But you get it. Oh yeah, also, apparently this weapon camo actually is animated. It is actually moving. Now, it's not like the best animation or anything like that. It's basically just that exact pattern, just bright red, but it's just scrolling. There's really no other effect on it, but it doesn't look bad, that's for sure. It also probably isn't going to be earnable after this whole event. I just can't imagine that they would have, like, an earnable camo from a collab that is no longer active. So it's probably going to be pretty rare, given it's going to be on a game that no one's going to really be looking back at, so. I didn't hit record. Oh my fucking God.